Greetings, beautiful people. My name is Simon Javan Okelo. I am the CEO and the founder of Madaraka Festival and also the host of Madaraka Festival Podcast. I am really excited to come to you with another episode recorded live and direct here at the Seattle Drum School of Music. I'm truly honored to host Karen Okonkwo, who is an incredible leader here in Seattle, Washington. Karen does incredible events and also is one of the founders of Tonl. We are going to take a deep dive into, how Karen created both of these, companies that she is running, but also where her journey began and where her journey is when we speak about her personal brand. And then we are going to talk about Madaraka Festival. We are going to talk about a lot of things that I want you guys to, stay tuned and ensure you're leaving your comments down below so that if you're inspired with our conversation today, we want to know about it. So Karen, I feel like I introduced you, but you should add a little icing to the introduction. Did I miss anything?
No, you didn't. I thought it was wonderful. I think it's important for people to know my heritage, of course. So I'm Nigerian-American, first generation. I was born here in the U.S., but I was grateful to have parents who instilled our culture into all five of us that grew up in Arizona. So I feel very multicultural in a sense. Grew up in America, experienced American culture, but also very much experienced my Nigerian roots.
I love that. I love how our roots really shape how we exist, no matter where we are in the world.
Yeah.
If you honor your roots and who you are, it really grounds you,
Yeah.
And I really love how that's important to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Take us back to a moment when you are like 5 to 10 years old and reflect on some of the colors, some of the sounds, and some of the smells that when you think about those years, it really brings you back to this moment, and makes you feel like, those years kind of shaped who I am today. I ask this question because I feel that everybody didn't just show up.
Yeah.
None of us actually just showed up. We all have a story, and a lot of us, when things started making sense to us, was when we were 5 to 10. And our environment and our smells and the colors were some of the things that really shaped who we are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, as you're speaking, I'm transporting myself into, our first childhood home that I spent the majority of my formative years in. And when I think of colors, I think of distinctly the color red and the color purple. Those are both really bold colors. They scream fierceness, independence, royalty, feminism, or just being feminine. And I really felt like I had a childhood that allowed me to be very exploratory. My parents, they are African, but they were very authoritative in their parenting style. So we always felt like we had the freedom to do whatever we wanted, but there was still that root, that groundedness that always reminded us of who we are. And so when I think of the smells, my family is very communal. And so there was always plantain cooking. There was always fufu and egusi soup. There was always music that was being played on the record. It just was a constant flow of food and noise and music and just freedom that I felt as a child growing up in suburbia that predominantly had white people in my neighborhood. We were really the only Black people, but we cultivated our own sense of family and community and culture within our 2-story home. And I often found myself really exploring that freedom through writing. And I would go outside and I would sit on this particular tree that I would hop the gate over and just sit and reflect and just write out all of my thoughts, all of my feelings. And that allowed me to be so much more articulate with the way that I speak, the way that I express myself. And I really attribute it to those moments of freedom growing up in Arizona.
I love that. I can, thinking about that, just that description of how from time to time you'd go and journal, at a young age.
Yeah.
It reminds me of how thorough and detail-oriented you are with everything you do,
Yeah.
Whether it's the events you're working on, whether it's the pastries, whether it's Tonl, I feel like there's just a deeper level of detail and things you see that not everybody sees,
Yeah.
And it's exciting for me to always try to connect stories and things like that.
Yeah.
So when you look back, though, at the beginning of your personal brand, Karen Okonkwo, and also some of the offshoots of the work you've done. Earlier on when we met, I think you are in the pharmaceutical industry, right?
Medical sales, yeah.
Medical sales?
Yeah, very close.
Yeah. And things have evolved for you in totally wild ways.
Right.
Take us on a journey. If you want, you can start from where you went to school. If you want, you can just start this is where you transitioned from working a full-time corporate job to where you are now.
Yeah. So to reiterate what you're saying about just talking about my journey, so I'll start actually on how I landed in Seattle, Washington. So I originally growing up wanted to be a lawyer, and I also wanted to be a doctor. I decided to focus more on the doctor route. I thank a homeless man in Phoenix for changing my entire direction, because he pointed at me one time when I was going to the Phoenix African Festival. A homeless man was near the door, and he pointed at me and he said, "You're a businesswoman. You're going to tell people what to do someday." And I'm not even joking you. That day, I dropped all of my science classes that was in my pursuit of being a doctor. And I was like, that's God telling me that I'm a business person. And what degree or what way, I do not know yet. I don't know how that will manifest, but let me start to build those bricks. So I ended up getting into the business school, which led me to a bigger pool of opportunities as far as seeing jobs and internships. And a job that popped up on the listserv was for medical sales. So I applied for it. I got it. I was able to move to California and do some training for 10 months before they placed me in a territory. And that territory magically became Seattle. So I spent almost a decade doing medical sales. But in between that time, I'm in a new city. Your social life is handed to you when you're younger, especially when you're in high school, college. But when you move to a new city, you really start fresh. You start new. And there were a few things that I knew I wanted to do differently here. I knew that I didn't have a lot of African-American Black friends. I really wanted to foster that. And I really started to realize in building that community that I like to bring people together and I like to event plan. And so that is when I started my first business. While I was still doing the corporate job thing, I started my first business, which is still in existence, called Party with a K. And under that umbrella is event planning. It's helping people when it comes to understanding business. That was really the second bug that bit me. The first was the homeless man. And then the second was realizing I wanted something new and different in Seattle. And as I cultivated that community, meeting other African-American, Black people, particularly women, I realized my knack for bringing people together in event planning. And so from that point, I started to continue to just be curious about business and just finding holes in things and trying to find solutions for them. So the blogging world was really ripe in the early 2010s. And I decided to start a blog with my sorority sisters called The Sorority Secrets to expose just the different ways that women in college who are a part of sororities are really influential, but they don't necessarily do it with a lot of money. They're just very connected. And so through that blog, it was when I became aware that a lot of imagery online was very racially one-sided. And it was only depicting a lot of, we'll just say one race, one predominant race. And we know that the world is not one race, it's multiple races. And that is what then inspired me to move into the stock photography space with my co-founder, Joshua Kissy. And so what you notice throughout my entire journey as I'm building my personal brand is all I'm doing is I'm listening to the call from God that there is a need and that I believe I'm the person that can help fill that. And so my why has always been to serve on the underserved and to show people how they can celebrate themselves every single day. And so that is the vessel that I move through, and how I make decisions on everything that I do is through those two pillars.
I love that. I love how you're also putting God first in everything that you do. Yeah. And, you know, I would say in Africa, the church is huge and religion is such a big influence.
Yeah.
I feel like here in the diaspora, it's also like that. But people are not just upfront with it the way you are, you know. Why do you feel comfortable referencing God from time to time, even during our conversation?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. For me, I think that a lot of people go through their own spiritual journey. And I was fortunate enough at a very young age to be educated about God, to be educated about Jesus Christ. And I was fortunate because my grandmother came to the U.S. to help support my mother and father with the last two kids in our family, twins. And she really helped foster my relationship with God. My parents did as well. We all always prayed together, but it was my grandma who is the source of why I am who I am today as far as my spiritual walk. And so throughout my life, I have been exposed to a lot of things that can shake people. I was involved in an accident that took the life of one of my friends when I was in high school. You know, I've experienced losses. I've experienced financial issues. I've experienced business issues. And because I have that solid foundation of God and he shows me who he is when I ask him, I also have the gift of seeing things in dreams. It would be in poor standing for me to never put God in front of everything that I do, because everything that I have and everything that makes me who I am is because of God. Yeah. So it's only right for me to always bring him up in conversation because I am who I am because of God, and I'm where I am because of God. Yeah.
I love how you say that you have a gift of seeing things in dreams.
Yes.
And I want you to speak a little bit about that. Speak more about that.
Yeah. Well, earlier I mentioned that I was in an accident when I was younger.
Yeah.
I was not the driver, but I was a passenger, and there was a group of other friends in the car. And unfortunately, as a result, one of my friends passed away. And there were a lot of things that happened during that accident that was a lot of intuition that I experienced that was starting to, I think, hone the gift of not only having awareness, but also God speaking through me. And when my friend passed away, everybody was devastated. Everybody, wanted to see her again. And I really was very strong in the way that I acted after the accident. You didn't see me cry a lot. I was really a spiritual guide for a lot of people. But eventually, grief will always hit you.
Yeah.
Whether it's in 2 months, 2 years, 2 weeks, it doesn't matter, it'll hit you. And I mentioned earlier that there's 5 kids, 2 parents. That means that the house is always buzzing with people. But for whatever reason, this specific day, this one day, it was just me in the home. And the grief hit me like a ton of bricks. And I wept, just cried. And I said, God, please, can you show me my friend one more time? And I went to sleep that day. And in my dream, God was calling me to come down the stairwell of my childhood home. There was a singular phone that was on a distinct table that we have near our dining room and living room. And when I picked up the phone, my friend appeared. And she was standing in front of me, and we were just talking and talking for what felt like hours, but also felt so brief. And just smiling and talking and asking her all these things, silly questions like, oh, are you going to still be with your boyfriend? And, just silly things. And all of a sudden, when the moment ended, I just saw her just walk away into this beautiful forest. It just looked like everything you think heaven would be. And I woke up. And that was the start of me having God send dreams, send messages to me through dreams. That was the most distinct memory I have of experiencing that gift.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. that not only you have the gift, but you're recognizing it.
Yes.
If you recognize that you have something, it's even worse because now you have to be responsible for it.
This is very true. Yes.
Yeah. So now that you have this gift, how it's always said that if you're ignorant, it's better than being informed, because the moment you're informed and you have this information, now you have to act on it.
Yeah.
You have to do something with it.
Yeah.
I feel that it's incredible that you have that gift. It reminds me so much about back home, where I had aunties and relatives and people who had similar gifts.
Yeah.
And they recognized it and they used their gifts to uplift other people, to inform other people.
Yeah.
It's almost like technology,
It's true.
It's almost so like true. Technology. It's like AI, spiritual AI.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a good way to say it.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about Tonl. I feel like Tonl is one of the projects that I would say I'm most proud of you for spearheading. But I also recognize how amazing you are with events, because you've worked with me on a number of One Vibe Africa fundraising dinners.
Yeah.
And I've seen how you've transformed the entire, Northwest African-American Art Museum into a vibe. When you were speaking about your house and how it was like full of things, I wanted to say that was a vibe. You guys created a vibe. And you're a vibe curator.
Thank you. I like being a tastemaker, so thank you.
Right. So speak about that. Speak about how you and Joshua Kisi connected, how Tonl came about, and also some of the things that you're excited about that are coming up that people still don't know.
Yeah. So Joshua and I met through his wife, who is my best friend. At the time, they were just dating. They weren't married. And when I was confronted, because what I didn't mention earlier when I said I started a blog is that a friend of mine here actually called me out. And he said, hey, how come you don't have any Black people on your site? And that wasn't intentional. That was a subconscious thing that a lot of us do, which is we see the world as white. And so when that was called out to me, I said, okay, I got to solve that. And I scoured the web and I could not find decent looking images of Black and brown people doing everyday things. Well, simultaneously, I was aware that Josh is a very well-known, talented photographer. And I said, let me reach out to Mektis, his wife, and see if she's okay with me pitching an idea to him. And she said, yeah, go ahead, talk to him. And I said, hey, there's this gap in the stock photography world, in the imagery world, rather, that doesn't showcase Black and brown people doing everyday things in a beautiful light. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, I'm very familiar with stock photography. I'm willing to embark on this journey, but only if you will. And I was like, oh, no, I was just presenting this idea to you. I don't actually want to do it. I don't have the bandwidth. I'm doing all these other things. He's like, well, I'm busy too. And so we just tabled it. And then in that time period, because that conversation was in February of 2016, Philando Castile and Alton Sterling were murdered by the police. And rather than to showcase them as brothers, sons, husbands, people who are wonderful members of society, newscasters, journalists, the media decided to depict them like they were the villains, like they were criminals and thugs, and really they were victims. And it was in that moment that Josh and I, we reconvened and we said, yeah, we need to take our stories back and show our people in the correct light through imagery, through storytelling. And that is when we decided to go full throttle in launching Tonl. And so since then, if we're talking about where are we moving toward now, well, in the same way that imagery was very racially one-sided, so too in the AI space are data sets. A lot of these data sets that are informing AI are very biased. They are missing Black and brown people. And we have spent the last 8+ years curating content that showcases not just racial diversity, but all forms of diversity. And so we've decided to partner with Create Lab Ventures, and they started their own form of ChatGPT called Empowered AI that helps people who are in the marketing space, who are in the social justice space, figure out how to navigate that world using prompts to write, proposals, to create legal documents, to create marketing content. And so we partner with them to launch our photo generative AI tool that will be coming out here very soon to showcase what the world still looks like. This time, the world that you think in your mind now. The world that you prompt through your fingers when you write in the box whatever you envision. And so that is the next generation of Tonl. Of course, our stock photography will still live, just like the record player is still around, even though we have, streaming services. We see stock photography now will be more at a premium, but photo generative AI is going to solve the gap of biased images that don't exist, and also just to showcase what the world looks like in this AI world.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love it so much because everybody is now saying that AI is not just the future, but it's the now.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to speak a little more about that?
Yeah, I just tell people that if you are right now in the camp of saying, I think AI is going to take my job, I think you need to understand that it's not so much as that AI is going to take your job, it's going to take your whole industry. Mm-hmm. And so you now have to ask yourself, am I going to look at AI like it is a villain, or am I going to look at AI as an ally? Mm-hmm. And when you look at AI as an ally, well, now you're going to reimagine how you can approach AI. Mm-hmm. I'm telling people, you can be an AI consultant, because there are people who are very novice when it comes to AI. Mm-hmm. You can stand in and you can say, hey, Simon, what do you envision for your business? Oh, okay, well, let me show you through these AI tools how to execute on that. If you're a creative, we are the ones that feed these data sets. So your mind is still valuable. So you can still pitch yourself as somebody who can make media kits and briefs and be a visionary. And then you can take that and you can beautify that, of course, through AI, but your vision and your mind is still important. So it's about looking at AI at how it's going to help you and bring out maybe a new version of yourself, mm-hmm. and not be sitting here and, hold a grudge and say, oh, it's taking this, it's taking that, because it's been doing that. AI has been here even before this boom, and it's only going to move in an upward trajectory, and you don't want to get left behind.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Now we're going to come back and talk a little more about some of the exciting events that you have coming up, mm-hmm. or some of the events you've recently worked on. I know it's summertime and it's event season.
Yes.
For now, I want us to talk a little bit about Madaraka Festival.
Please.
I have produced Madaraka Festival for 11 years.
Wild.
And you've seen the entire journey, you know. So I want you to just reflect on your first interaction with Madaraka Festival, and also reflect on maybe the impact that Madaraka Festival has had on you or our community. And then after that, I'm going to ask you to look at this camera and invite everybody to join us on August 30th at Pier 62. And also, I'm going to ask you to look at that camera and invite everybody to subscribe to Madaraka Festival on YouTube. Mm-hmm. After that, I'll ask you to share your handles and how people can stay connected with you.
Okay.
Then we will come back to our conversation after that, where we will now speak about one thing that I didn't ask that you want to share, you know?
Okay.
And the events that you have coming up.
Okay.
So now, Madaraka. Let's talk about Madaraka a little bit, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I remember first experiencing Madaraka Festival, and it was what was called, for my first experience, was at EMP.
Yeah, Museum of Experience Music Project.
Yeah, that was my first live experience, and I was blown away. It was just, it was magical. And I was like, wow, such a production like this exists in Seattle. And I obviously had just moved to Seattle. And so everything was definitely new, but I also, wasn't seeing things at that scale. And so I was thoroughly impressed by that. And then obviously when you invited me to join in for more on the raising money side of things and event planning, I loved to hear more of the stories of impact. That's where I feel the most excited in life, is understanding how certain businesses are creating impact for their community. And so I was very proud to witness that all of these efforts that we're doing, they were not going in vain. And so just the production of it all. And I've witnessed you do things at Langston Hughes Performing Arts Center as well. I just love how you found different ways to sprinkle in Madaraka Festival, not just an isolated event, but how it lives on through other ways of how you're impacting communities. So, that's been my experience, and it's been wonderful.
Thank you. I love that. I love how you brought up Langston Hughes. I've done a lot of things at Langston. The dinners, Seattle Art Museum. I did a lot of things outside of Madaraka Festival, and it's true, these smaller events have actually sustained Madaraka Festival. This podcast, it's helping spread the word and sustain Madaraka Festival. And I really thank you too, because you're one of the people in the community that have really stood with me, whether it's with Madaraka Festival or with the fundraising dinners, which I don't do anymore. I used to do so many events.
I know, you did. And they were fun.
A lot of, there's a couple that met, and I went and officiated their wedding, at one of these. The couple met at the dinner we used to do at Avol Cafe Avol.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah, they met there. Then he proposed at Seattle Art Museum during Kijiji night.
Oh, wow.
Then I went and officiated their wedding in Tacoma, like a year or so after.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then there are children whose parents met at...
Wow.
We have a lot of Madaraka babies.
Yeah, that is amazing.
It's crazy, right? Anyway, so look at this camera and invite everyone to join us on Saturday, August 30th at Pier 62 for Madaraka 2025.
Hi, everyone. This is Karen Okonkwo, and I hope that I'm going to see you at Madaraka Festival, taking place on Saturday, August 30th at Pier 62. Live music, entertainment, community. Why miss it? Make sure that you join us. Tickets are in the bio.
Perfect. I love it. Also, invite them to subscribe to Madaraka Festival on YouTube.
Make sure that you subscribe to Madaraka Festival on YouTube. Link below.
Perfect. Then share how they can stay connected with you and your handles and how they can support your work.
If you like what you heard in this podcast and you want to follow me, my handles on Instagram and Facebook and X are at Karen Okonkwo, Karen Okonkwo, and you can also follow my business, Tonl, at Tonl. I also do business consulting, and you can follow my networking event platform called Can I Ask You Something? And that is at Can I Ask You Something _
Perfect. Now, I want you to take a minute to share with us one thing that I didn't ask during our entire conversation. Okay. Something maybe where, as you are driving here, you are like, I really want to speak to Simon about this, or I want to say this,
Yeah. Outside of Tonl and outside of event planning, I really feel passionate about being an in-between for people who need business advice. Because I know for me, going throughout my journey, there really were unique questions that Google just simply could not answer for me. And to know that you can have a trusted person in the industry who has maybe experienced what you're experiencing and can maybe give you some relief and say, oh yeah, I would price this way, or yeah, based on the scenario that is a tricky one that you're going through, this is how I would go. And all of that is based on advice, on experience, And so I decided to start Can I Ask You Something, Karen, which is business consulting, but business consulting for those questions that you can't get answered on Google. And so this is an opportunity for me to kind of be a business lifeline for people. So I call it the category of consulting. That's essentially what it is. But that is something that I feel really strongly about building out more and talking about more, is that offering, that service offering. So can I ask you something, Karen?
I love that. Yeah, as a small business owner, I'm always looking for help. So what you're doing is helpful, and I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you. I want to also just thank you for making the time for our conversation today. I know how busy you are, and you taking the time to be here means a lot to me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
As always, I'm always here to root for you and support the things you're doing.
Thank you. For everyone that joined us for today's episode of the Madaraka Festival Podcast, thank you so much. One of the most direct ways that you can help with the growth of this platform and Madaraka Festival in general is by subscribing to our YouTube channel. So take a minute, do the subscription part, give this video a thumbs up, leave your comment down below, and you will see us continuing to grow this platform, continuing to bring on incredible guests and improve the production quality, and also come closer to you. We are ensuring that this podcast is also recorded at other locations within the Pacific Northwest and the world. And really, the growth depends on your participation and engagement. So thanks again. Peace.